I'm gonna call my shot right here. Landy calls his shot. Here we go. The tutorial for Kingdom Hearts 4 will be Mickey Mouse in the Scala ad Caelum libraries, and this is where the player will be introduced to the concept of Scala ad Caelum, Union Cross, Foretellers, Lost Master. The king has returned. But anyway, Michael Mouse, playable Michael Mouse, and look, let's talk about something that I don't think gets talked about enough. So the evolution of Kingdom Hearts' gameplay has been wild, to say the least, right? You had Kingdom Hearts 1, which really was a hybrid of platforming and action, which was all the rage in the PS2 days. You could think Jak and Daxter, you could think Spyro the Dragon, you could think Ratchet and Clank. Again, those weren't really RPGs, those were more action platformers. But what Kingdom Hearts brought to the table that made it so special was it took those action platformer elements of, say, your Jak and Daxters or your Ratchet and Clanks or your Spyros or what have you, and combined it with the RPG elements of Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, and the like. That was sort of Kingdom Hearts' niche when it burst onto the scene. Now, in Kingdom Hearts 2, they made a gameplay decision that some agreed with, some didn't, but in Kingdom Hearts 2, they pretty much cut the platforming and just made it a hallway of combat. I'm not saying that to its detriment. Some people prefer the hallway of combat. Completely valid. But Kingdom Hearts 1 had a different approach. There was exploration. There was vast exploration, I should say. There was vast exploration. There was lots of platforming. There were, for instance, there were things in the beginning of the game you couldn't achieve, certain platforming plateaus and spikes that you couldn't reach, that if you came back later in the game, you could. Little things like that. But then again, Kingdom Hearts 2 made this shift into, again, just being a hallway of combat. By the time we get to Kingdom Hearts 3, it really stuck to the sort of super combat-oriented spirit of Kingdom Hearts 2, but what you started to see were a lot more of those platforming elements starting to come back. I actually think Kingdom Hearts 4 is aiming to accomplish what Kingdom Hearts 1 couldn't. Not a shot at Kingdom Hearts 1, by the way. Absolutely love the game. I think there's a spirit and an energy in Kingdom Hearts 1 that will never be achieved again. But in some ways, the platforming in KH1 could be a little lacking at times. The action in Kingdom Hearts 1 could be a little lacking at times because it was so, this sort of approach was so new to the scene, was so, how do I put it? Was so novel in as a development. And then the fact that Kingdom Hearts 2 kind of pivoted never allowed that sort of hybrid approach to blossom. Kingdom Hearts 3 started to let that original vision bleed back in. And now finally getting to this image, I think based on what we saw in the KH4 trailer, which before you saw any real action, what did you see? You saw Sora doing platforming, right? He's using the kingdom key to like slingshot and air step his way through. He's sliding through a building, right? They're showing you right away that platforming vision from Kingdom Hearts 1, there's a team that really wants to achieve what that game set out to do. And when I look, now we're back here, when I look at this Michael Mouse screenshot, it appears to me they're showing you right away the platforming is back again. That the platforming is 100% going to be a focus here. You see there's limited commands for Mickey, probably just going to be between attack and a reaction that lets him swing from chandelier to chandelier. But it appears to me we're probably going to get a Michael Mouse segment, excuse me, that might serve as a tutorial for the game. Like, I actually think the tutorial might be Michael Mouse. I'm gonna call my shot right here. Landy calls his shot. Here we go. The tutorial for Kingdom Hearts 4 will be Mickey Mouse in the Scala ad Caelum libraries, and this is where the player will be introduced to the concept of Scala ad Caelum, Union Cross, Foretellers, Lost Master. I really think just in the way that Kingdom Hearts 2 had a way of educating the player on nobodies, Chain of Memories, Nominee, right? You might have missed the context in Chain of Memories, but the prologue of Kingdom Hearts 2 had a way of opening up new mysteries, but getting the player caught up to speed on what took place at Castle Oblivion. I think KH4 is going to take the same approach with Mickey Mouse, Michael Mouse, in Scala ad Caelum, going to be the prologue, and the whole time he's in Scala, you're not going to hear nothing about Sora, nothing about Riku, nothing about Kairi, nothing about any of that. It's all going to be foretellers, Master of Masters, Lost Masters. It's the start of the Lost Masters arc, Lost Master arc, which means the very first thing we're going to do is get a refresher or new insight on what the Lost Masters are. That is why we see Mickey Mouse here in Scala ad Caelum in this huge library. I mean, the setting speaks for itself. We're gonna get educated. We're gonna get educated over at Scala ad Caelum, okay? Talk about higher education. A tutorial for a mainline game not in a Station of Awakening could be interesting. I still think you might get that Station of Awakening tutorial with Sora, but shortly after that ends, I think we maneuver to Michael Mouse. Now, again, it also doesn't have to be the prologue. What you could have is a multifaceted, kind of the way Kingdom Hearts 3 did, where at certain times we'd play as Riku, at certain times we'd play as Aqua, at certain times we'd play as Sora. I think 4 might have an approach like that, and maybe this isn't the prologue, but maybe this is something that happens along the way. You know, I've said for the longest time, and I hold to it, it's not that I want less Disney in Kingdom Hearts. I do want less Disney worlds and less focus on Disney worlds, and I'd be fine for Disney's slice of the pie to be more invested in Mickey, Donald, Goofy, Yensid, Fairy Godmother, Merlin, Pete, Maleficent. You know, I've always said that. So seeing Mickey get a little bit of time in the light here, as we saw from Remind, right? Building off of Remind, I can't help but be really happy about that particular decision. So let's talk about the fact that he's very clearly, in my opinion, in Scala ad Caelum. If we recall, that is where Yensid basically said he was headed. So it should be no surprise that Mickey is in Scala ad Caelum. I do think this entire section is just going to be about telling us about the foretellers, telling us about the Master of Masters. That to me is what this entire gameplay segment appears to be. It seems to be very platforming oriented, and seeing as the platforming we can look at doesn't look too difficult, I imagine this is very early in the game. Much like everything else they've allowed us to see, I imagine this is very early in the game. $5 super chat from Billy the Kid Lawrence. I want other Disney villains, not just Maleficent, getting involved in the main story again, leaving their worlds. I think that could work for a handful of villains. I honestly wouldn't mind if that stayed limited to Maleficent and Hades.